Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
This podcast is made possible through donations from listeners like you and our partners at Tall Man Equipment. Have you shopped the clearance section on the Tall Man Equipment website? When the folks at Tall Man need to make room on their warehouse shelves, that means big savings for you guys, from power tools to dynamometers and much more. Check Tall Man Equipment's clearance page on their website at www.tallmanequipment.com, shop clearance, and save some big bucks today. Goalie Ashwa Gummies. You can find them at goalie.com. These gummies are a holistic, non-habit forming approach to help you relax, restore, and unwind. They are made with ashwagandha, which is classified as an adaptogen. These adaptogens are a select group of plants to help your body cope with stress. Studies have shown that KSM 66 ashwagandha reduces levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. Use our promo code, the Show Up Dad Foundation, to get 10% off your order. And last but not least, Zenderance. Their products are designed to maximize your health. At Zenderance, they strive to support and have a positive impact on the wellness of every hardworking dad out there. They use proven, clean, and accessible products to make an impact on your health and performance. Use my code, the Show Up Dad, and get 10% off your next purchase. For more info, go to www.zenderance.com. That is spelled XENDURANCE.com. Thank you. Welcome to Show Up Dad Podcast, where our mission is to improve the well-being of children by increasing the proportion of children growing up with an involved, responsible, and committed father. The Show Up Dad Foundation is a 501(c) organization that encourages dads to become more than just a paycheck. Today's guest is Jeremy Gardner. He is the owner and founder of Blue Collar Transformations. He is the father of 3 kids, and prior to starting his own business, he was an oil-filled hand for 5 years, where his journey began transforming his physique into what it is today. He created this program working 80 to 90 hours a week, and is here as living proof that fitness readiness does a body good. He is bringing hope to all the blue-collar dads out there that say they don't have time to work out. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, bro. Well, like always, I always like to ask our guests if they can share with us their relationship with their father.
So my relationship with my dad, man, I guess the best word for it is real, because it wasn't bad, but it wasn't always good either. My parents got divorced when I was 8 years old, and my mom. I have 2 really good parents on both sides, but they could not get along with each other to save their lives. And if you ever met both of them separately, it would make total sense. It's like, how did these people even end up in the same room long enough to have kids together? But that's beside the point. They're both great people. So anyway, my dad, whenever him and my mom split up, my mom actually moved in with like her best friend and stuff, and she had kids that were the same age as us. So when we would go over to my mom's, like at the beginning of this, it was just a party, right? Because we're sleepover with our friends, and we're 8 years old, so it's just a fun time. Meanwhile, back at my dad's, single dad now, he's lost, he's confused, he doesn't know how in the hell he's going to handle these 2 kids that are a year apart. So I have a younger brother. At the time, it was the only brother I had. I'm the oldest of 7 now, through all kinds of different blended siblings. But my dad and I clashed heads a lot, because I've always been kind of hard-headed one that wasn't afraid to say what I thought, literally from the time that I could talk, I feel like. And I think it stopped me from standing up to my dad. But the relationship was definitely rocky. I got in a lot of trouble. I'm only 5'3", so I was bullied a lot in high school, and I wasn't always in shape either. So I got in a lot of fights in school. Didn't get good grades, things like that. And my dad was on me to fix those problems, and I wasn't okay with it. So there was a lot of, back and forth and stuff. But now, as a father myself today, and as a grown man, I look back on all those times where my dad and I really had it out. And even when I was a young adult, there was a period of time, I think when I was like 21, my dad and I didn't even speak for pretty long period of time over a big argument that we got into. And I look back now and like I actually feel really, really bad about that. Because to be honest, I can't even tell you 100% what it was over. And I look back now, I see all these kids that grow up without dads, and just what a shit show life can kind of be for some of them that don't understand how to navigate those waters. And it just makes me so grateful that I had a dad that was there, that he tried. And he wasn't perfect at all, but the greatest gift that my dad gave me was he was proof that you didn't have to be perfect.
Wow.
You could still make it. Because today my dad is great grandpa to my kids, and just he's a different man than he was when I was growing up, and he'll admit that. And it's that in and of itself is like, I feel like the best gift that any father could give any kid is, just if you screw up, be real, and then do the work to fix it right in front of their face. And that in and of itself is going to give them the hope to believe that no matter how bad they screw up, there's always going to be hope to come back, because I watched my dad do it. So that's kind of my relationship with my dad in a nutshell. I feel like.
Dude, that's freaking amazing that you said that. I've never heard anybody put it in that perspective. Proof that dads don't have to be perfect. That's something that we say on the podcast. That's something that I talk to other fathers out there, and they always ask me, Dave, I messed up again. And I always tell them, right? Hey, you know what I mean? A bad moment isn't a bad life. But to hear you put it in that perspective, that dads don't have to be perfect to be a gift. That's awesome. There's statistics like crazy through the National Father Initiative that say that the presence alone of a father, you don't even have to be a good dad, is significantly better than a father who's not there. Like, your grades are better. The likelihood of you going to prison drops significantly. The likelihood of you becoming pregnant as a teenager, goes down, and everything just from you being there. So can you imagine if you are a good dad and you're actually, putting in the work?
Well, and then just the reverse that statement you just said. I look back and all those things you just said. I mean, I was the kid that was on the line and could have literally one gust of the wind could have put me on either side of that line for that statement that you just said. And I look back on that and I'm like, man, if my dad wasn't there trying his hardest, like, might you know what I mean?
It might be a different story. You probably wouldn't be on the podcast, right?
Probably not this one anyway.
That's awesome, brother. Well, I wanted to ask you, Jeremy. So you talked about your relationship with your dad growing up and stuff like that. How is your mother and father's interaction? I always ask that because I feel that's important, because our dynamic as husband and wife, right? Even if they're separated, right? How they respond and react to each other shows our kids so much more than just two parents just bickering and fighting with each other. We're actually teaching them how to respond to the opposite sex, and have relationships ourselves. So how was their relationship, and how did they
well, it was not great. I don't really remember a whole lot of when they were together, honestly. I mean, I got some vague memories of like family vacations and stuff that I think were fun, at least for us. Me and my brother. But I don't really remember my mom and dad. And I think I remember a couple fights like the year before their divorce, but I don't really remember my mom and dad interacting with each other. I remember them trying to interact with each other after the divorce and it not going well at all. So I mean, that I don't really have a whole lot of perspective as far as like how my mother and father interact with each other. But who I looked to instead was my gran and soup, my grandma and grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
they were my mom's parents, and they ran a motorcycle shop together.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they worked together, they lived together, they rode motorcycles in their spare time together. They loved each other. They were best friends. They joked around. They laughed. They made being in a relationship look like so much fun that I
Mm-hmm.
think it might have been the only thing that made me not give up on wanting one.
Wow. Man, that's awesome to hear you say that, dude, that you actually longed for that and that you sought for that and you saw that in your grandparents. I mean, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Because even at that young age and stuff like that, you're able to recognize what a bad relationship looks like. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of kids know that. Even for me myself, um, my kids know when mama and me are fighting.
Mm-hmm.
They're like on eggshells. They're kind of like looking at me with
Yeah.
those eyes, like, is everything okay or whatever? You know what I mean? Because all that fighting and bickering changes the atmosphere.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I growing up, man, I don't even really recall being around very many good relationships from adults, period.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say I actually talk about my grand and suits relationship quite frequently
Mm-hmm.
in my personal life with my wife and my kids and everybody, because it really was something that gave me hope in life. Because I mean, literally most of the adults that I knew, they just arguing with their wives all the time, talking trash to their wives behind their back. That's one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that kind of irritated me when I worked in the oil field and did that blue collar work and was out in the field with those type of guys. Is like it was like a common theme is everybody's kind of trash talking their wife back home, and it's kind of always baffled me. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't have a good relationship at the time, and I still wasn't participating in that. It's like,
Wow.
yeah, it's like how can you not notice you're part of the problem if you're out here doing this?
Right.
But
Exactly.
just having them to look to was,
Mm-hmm.
so helpful, because again, like I said, it was very uncommon. I mean, I think every single one of my friends' parents were divorced.
Wow.
Like, and then the people that I did know that were together, I remember being at their houses and hearing them fight with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So to have my grandparents and to have them to look up to, and we spent every other Saturday night at their house as kids, and then
Mm-hmm.
as a teenager in high school, and then into my early 20s, I worked at their motorcycle shop that whole chapter of my life,
Mm-hmm.
every day, 40 to 50 hours a week. So I
Yeah.
had a really front row seat to like that relationship. And now my wife and I, we run this business together. We work together. We live together. We work out together. We raise our kids together, and we're having a blast. And we argue and bicker, because I remember Grand Sleep weren't perfect. They fought, but
Yeah.
I always remember how they would recover from the fight too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, my soup is in his 70s, and he'll still smack my grandma on the ass and call her baby. And I just think that's freaking awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that
In a
is
room full
awesome.
of people. So
Right.
yeah, that's kind of where my relationship perspective comes from. I found the only good example I could and looked up to it, I guess.
And grabbed the holder and ran with it, huh?
Yeah.
Win, baby, just win. I wanted to ask you, Jeremy. Now, how long have you been married to your wife now?
Um. So, well, I got to be 100,000% transparent. We actually aren't legally married yet.
Oh, okay.
We're just 1,000% committed to each other. I mean, she's my full blown business partner.
Okay.
And we just call each other husband and wife. Because I'm not going anywhere, she's not going anywhere, and the marriage is definitely happening. But we've been together for going on 3 years now.
Okay. Okay, man. You guys have
So
been through a lot, seems like, with the whole business and everything like that. I know that ain't an easy task to take on, especially
yeah,
transferring from blue collar work where you have a steady paycheck, you're making that good money, you know what I mean, into your own business. That had to
yeah,
be hard.
yeah. I mean, it was definitely scary, but I
Hmm.
mean, so I started my business in 2020, well, 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
And I was still in my previous relationship with my ex, um, who I'd been with for like 8 years. And but the only reason that relationship really kind of lasted so long was because I was gone all the time.
Uh-huh.
So like in 8 years, in however many years, we spent like 1 year worth of days together. You know what I
Wow.
mean?
Yeah.
But when I got out and I started my business, it just couldn't have been more apparent how bad our personalities actually clashed with each other. and how much we definitely weren't going to get along if I was going to be running a business from inside of our house and we were
Yeah.
gonna, you know what I mean? She definitely wasn't the person that I could have this dynamic with. And because of looking up to my grand and soup so much growing up, this is what I knew I wanted out of my life,
Yeah.
you know. So I decided to cut ties there. And I mean, you know, and that in and of itself is a scary thing. And I was about to turn 30 years old. I'd been with one woman my whole life, been doing this blue collar work stuff my whole life. I was maybe 6 months into business on my own full time, with this being my only source of income, when I broke things off with her. And then I met my wife not very long after that. And we just, everything kind of just
Fell into place.
rolled because it all just meshed. And it was probably 6 months before she quit her job to start helping me with the business and everything else. And it's just been, I mean, I've never, it's hard to say this without tearing up a little bit sometimes, but I've literally never in my life felt like I had someone care for me the way that she does. I mean, this woman does nothing but support my dreams like 100,000%. And you know, I'm a technologically illiterate roughneck who managed to figure out how to start an online business because I'm literally just too stubborn to stop working. And I would work like 18 hours a day in front of my computer, you know, till my eyes were bloodshot and I couldn't hold them open anymore. And if money was tight and the business wasn't making enough money, then I would go drive for Uber until all the bars closed down, get like literally zero sleep, and then wake up and start working on the business the next day just to get, you know, pay for groceries and my bills and everything. And while I got this rolling, and that's what it took to get it going. But you know, I met her and she was actually a data entry technician at a pharmacy for like 12 years. So she can type super fast. She's been sitting in front of a computer doing this stuff. And you know, and then she also has had her own amazing transformation. She's lost over 100 pounds and transformed her own physique. So she understands the, you know, the power behind what we're doing through her own life and her own journey. So that, like, she has a lot of passion for what we're doing too. So that makes her, you know, really pour herself into it just as much as I do, if not even more sometimes, honestly. And she took what used to take me 18 hours a day and helped me boil that down into literally like 2 hours. So now we're able to grow in all these other directions. Whereas before I was just like glued to this computer screen and couldn't, you know, couldn't get it going.
Two-finger typing and stuff like that. Yep. I know what you're talking about, man. That's really cool that you said that she supported you, you know, supported your dream. I know a lot of women, especially line wives out there, right? They support their husbands. They stay home. You know, my wife did the same thing. They pretty much give up on their dreams so we can go out and do our dream, right? Which is to support our family, you know, make a lot of money and stuff like that, right? And create a better life. Now, with that being said, you know, for a lot of people out there, a lot of couples, sometimes when your dream becomes your spouse's nightmare, it's time to reassess the dream, right? And it seems like you guys are right on the same page. You know, the Bible says, how can two walk together unless they be agreed? And it looks like you guys are in agreement with everything. And that's why it's going great for you guys, you know.
100,000%, man. I mean, and that's, and what you said about like, if you know, your dream becomes your spouse's nightmare, it's time to reassess your dream. This might sound kind of harsh, but I would encourage some people, it might be time to reassess your spouse too. I mean, not if you have kids. I mean, definitely a more tricky situation. But to the younger blue collar guys out there that are trying to break out, and you know, you do want a family and things. If things are really rocky now, and you're trying to chase after a dream, and you guys can't agree on the dream, and it's nothing but tension, and you try that for so many years in a row, then you know, maybe it's not, and the next thing waiting is probably what God's had in store for you the whole time. So, you know, I think that's the lesson behind how I kind of roundabout got to where I am.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you mentioned you had 3 kids, right?
Yes.
So those 3 kids, those are from your second spouse, correct? or your
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Yes. I didn't have any kids with my first spouse.
Okay.
With
Now,
my first girlfriend. Sorry.
first girlfriend.
Yeah.
So
Long term girlfriend.
the long-term girlfriend, right? Now,
Yeah.
with that being said, becoming a dad, right? Because you became literally a dad, in this new relationship that you're in
Mhm.
right now.
Mhm.
How was that transition? How did that affect you? Like, what did you have to give up on, or not give up on? And what did you start having to do? Like, how did it start changing?
So, I mean, it was definitely a weird transition, and it kind of felt like it happened all at once for sure.
Hmm.
And because now I have a 3-month old daughter,
Hmm.
so I have the experience of becoming a stepdad and the experience of becoming a dad, and when you are about to have a kid and your wife's pregnant and you've got this 9-month period of like thinking to yourself, what's this kid going to look like? What are they going to act like? What's it going to feel like when I hold? Like you have a whole runway of time to
Yeah.
like kind of amp yourself up to almost like, I hate to compare it to something so whatever, but like you're about to go on a vacation to somewhere you've never been,
Hmm.
but you can kind of start to build up that experience in your mind.
Yeah.
When you become a stepdad and you really didn't have like huge intentions of becoming a stepdad, that whole part gets skipped.
Mm.
And and when I met my wife and I fell in love with her,
Hmm.
I simultaneously fell in love with her kids. Um,
Wow.
I met her kids, pretty early into our relationship, but her and I talked about it, and me coming from divorce and knowing what it's like having my parents dating people and people, kind of coming in and out of my life and staying in my life and not and whatever. I remember that from the kids' perspective. So, I
Hmm.
was very like, are you sure that you're ready for me to meet them? Like, because I don't want to come in here and then you decide 3 months from now that you don't like me and they
Yeah.
do and I like them. So, um, so I was trying to avoid all that, but like there was never any of that. And, the oldest is 14 now, youngest
Hmm.
is 10. And I mean, dude, they're my buddies, man. Like, the oldest, he is just all about lifting weights and working out. He got into it last year with me, and ever since, it's just like he's been bit by the bug. And it's pretty
Hmm.
cool because he's just like I was, man. He's not into sports really. I was
Hmm.
not an athlete per se, but the
Uh-huh.
very first time I ever grabbed a dumbbell, man, I was addicted to lifting weights for no
Hmm.
reason other than just to lift. And it's kind of an oxymoron to be like I was actually a drummer in the band, and
Uh-huh.
but I was working out with the football players. And my son's kind of doing the same thing now. He's not in the band, but he's just a really smart kid, and he's into video games, and he does a little bit of crypto trading on his own and stuff too. But he's
Hmm.
really into working out and lifting weights and taking care of his body as well. And I just think that's super cool to see him and to know that I'm influencing those good, healthy habits into his life. Is
Hmm.
such a good feeling. And then, with the 10-year-old man, he's funny because, I watch that kid and I look at him and sometimes it's like, are you sure you're not mine? Because, he's kind of same, like, you know, little smart alecky attitude that I had when I was that age. And he's not afraid to, give it back to me a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
And, it can be a little bit fresh. I mean, I definitely catch myself thinking like, if he were mine biologically, this dynamic would definitely be the same, maybe even a little bit worse because I'd probably be getting it back even harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
uh,
yeah, I love being a dad, man. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. I as far as like things I've had to give up,
mhm.
I my life has been such a drastic transition from the oil field to here over
Mhm.
from 2019 to now. Plus, Corona came through and changed the world the way that it
Yeah.
did. Um, that to like go through and sort out what I've had to give up because of becoming a dad and what I've had to give up because of becoming an entrepreneur and what I've had to give up because of like
Yeah.
it would all just get, mixed together. But it doesn't feel like I've had to give anything up. And
Mhm.
I think that's such a huge parallel to I'm going to get into for 1 second why I love fitness and what I do so much because to me fitness
Mhm.
is a direct metaphor for literally every single thing in our lives. right?
Yeah.
And when we're looking at somebody who's overweight and they want to start a fitness journey, you're standing on the side of the door where you haven't started the journey even at all yet, and you're looking at all the things that you're going to have to do and all the things you're going to have to give up, right? And I say give up with air quotes because it's not. I hate that everybody views it as you're giving something up.
Yeah.
And I use, for me, it was like alcohol. I loved alcohol, man. I drank like a fish from the time I was probably, I don't know, 14 till I was 22, 21. And then even after I was 21, when I slowed down, I still loved me a good whiskey and, a beer or two here and there, well, I say
Yeah.
here or there, like one beer a night instead of one case of beer a night. Like
Right.
I was in my, young years. And I used to always think, man, I don't want to give up alcohol. I don't want to give up alcohol. I don't want to give up alcohol. Now looking back, I drink like maybe 4 glasses of whiskey a year now. And that's just because when I go visit my dad, he's got bottles of whiskey that cost more than my car. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
have a glass of that when I go.
Yeah.
But
You can turn that one down.
yeah, exactly. But you know, I don't feel like I gave up alcohol. I felt like alcohol was actually, I was allowing alcohol to force me to give up this life that I didn't even know existed.
hmm
And so it I feel like if there was anything that I had in the moment when I was maybe sacrificing something, I probably did have times where I felt like, man, this is going to suck to have to give this up.
Yeah.
But right afterwards, the feeling of what happened on the other side of that sacrifice was so great that I don't even remember what I sacrificed anymore.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
good to see that. Yeah. That pleasure you're experiencing now outweighs what you gave up in the past. You know what I mean? But in order to
yeah,
get there, you had to give that up because where would you
100%.
be?
I mean,
You
and
know?
it's like that the fear thing, right? Like I think
Yeah.
everybody's just so afraid to give up on like all these things because alcohol is still another great example. I mean, as blue collar men, a lot
hmm
of us we identify
hmm
with how much beer we can drink. I mean, I used to literally brag about being able to drink more beer than all my friends.
hmm
Yeah, and it would be a competition to see literally who could drink more beer. And it's like looking back now, man, that was a whole piece of my identity.
Yeah.
So much so that like one of the things that we're doing with Blue Collar Transformations is we started a clothing line called Transform Your Habits. We have all
Uh-huh.
these shirts that have our logo, but it's like this is a Coors Light can, but it's
Oh
our
yeah.
logo. So we have we have all the like mainstream beers. We did a Copenhagen, parody logo, stuff like that. We're calling it Change Your Habits because, blue collar men, we all identify with these super unhealthy habits.
Yeah.
And we're afraid to give those up because we're like, man, who am I even without this stuff?
Mm.
And that's what it feels like so much sometimes. But I can tell you who you are without that stuff is your own best friend and somebody that you didn't even believe was possible to
hmm
exist in this world. I mean, I wake up almost every single day and look around. Even I have a 3-month-old daughter, and she just so happens to be sick right now. So
hmm
as a dad yourself, I don't have to tell you
Yeah.
how much sleep we're getting. And even in this situation, I wake up in the morning, and as soon as I gather my thoughts and look around, I'm like, I can't believe this is my life.
Yeah.
If you would have told me 4 or 5 years ago that I would be doing this for a living and I would have a
hmm
relationship this good, I would have kids this amazing, all this stuff, I would have never believed it in a million years. And it was all just because I literally decided to say, you know what, I'm going to not be afraid. I'm going to trust in God. And because I've always kind of felt like I've had this calling in
Yeah.
me to do this. I've wanted to be a personal trainer since I was 19 years old. Took me
Yeah.
until I was 20. Took me until I was 29 to do it. Uh,
Wow.
but it's because God had to take me through that blue collar route to
hmm
show me who my people were to help
hmm
with being a personal trainer. He knew I wasn't supposed to just go be the guy that stood in the gym in a polo shirt in the
Yeah.
corner and counted somebody's reps.
Yeah.
You know that
Exactly.
that wasn't the path I was supposed to take.
And I think that's awesome too, because not only did you find your tribe, you had to go through, like you said, what you did in order to be relational. You know what I mean? No one
Mhm.
wants to listen to a guy who doesn't know what it's like to work 80 or 90 hours or have to deal with habits like you say, the drinking, the Copenhagen and all that stuff, right? They don't know about
Mhm.
that because why? They're too busy, and nothing against them. They have their own
Yeah.
tribe, right? But you can relate to the blue collar dad. You can reach out to the blue collar dad. You reached out to me. I mean, I saw your stuff. I love what you're doing. And I was like, man, I need to talk to that guy. You know what I'm saying? But
Thank you, bro.
no, that's friggin' awesome, dude. Now, you talked about how this is your passion, your love, all these different things. What influenced you to want to work out? Like, did your dad show you about working out, or like how did that come to
Actually,
be, bro?
actually, no, not at all. My dad jokes all
Wow.
the time when he introduces me to people, because they'll look at him and then kind of look at me and make some jokes sometimes because my
Hmm.
dad's not in the greatest shape. But he does walk every day and exercise, and he watches what he eats, and he does a pretty good job. He's lost I want to say like 80 pounds
Yeah.
over over the course of like 5 years.
Right
So
on.
but he's doing his thing, but and he was always conscious of it. He was always trying. So
Hmm.
I at least had like, he was in my ear about like, it's important, but he wasn't executing well, and he knows that. But
Hmm.
he'll tell everybody he that I figured out how to beat our genetics is the joke that he makes.
Yeah, yeah,
So um but what actually inspired me to work out is, like I mentioned a little bit ago, I'm only 5'3".
yeah.
So and I was actually a fat kid in high school. So being 5'3" and a fat kid in high school is not a fun existence. I got bullied, I got beat up, I got picked on. So bad that a kid literally came into the bathroom one time,
Hmm.
whipped his thing out and pissed all over me
Oh,
while I
wow.
was standing there. I mean, that's how bad I got bullied. And I'm not saying that to victimize myself, but like that's
No.
what when that was the final straw for me, because like I stood there while that kid did that, totally frozen and scared and didn't
Yeah.
know what to do while he laughed. And then I went back to the classroom, and the girl that was sitting, the cheerleader that was sitting in front of me, uh, after I told the teacher what had happened, he told me I couldn't go to the office.
Oh,
And then
man.
I sat back down at my desk, and the cheerleader in front of me said, "Ooh, he smells like pee," and then the whole classroom laughed.
Oh, man.
So my uncle lived right over the hill from us, and
Hmm.
we lived in the middle of nowhere, and there was like a hill that separated my house from my uncle's house, and I walked over there. My uncle was in really good shape actually. Had a little
Hmm.
gym in his garage, and I looked up the Arnold Schwarzenegger big time. He had pictures of Arnold all over his garage. So I
Hmm.
walked over there. I said, "Can you teach me how to work out?" And he said, "Absolutely." And we started working out together. And so that was kind of like my introduction to it. But I do remember that first
Hmm.
little workout there in his garage, and the feeling of getting a pump, and the feeling of pushing myself through physical pain
Yeah.
on purpose.
Hmm.
And there was something about that for me.
Hmm.
And what I've realized today, and the reason why I love what I do so much, is because it's simple. When I go to the gym every morning,
Hmm.
I'm framing my mind for the rest of the day. I'm framing my mind and my body for the rest of the day to remind my body that I'm in charge,
Yeah.
and to remind my mind that I'm in charge. Because when you go get, like the level that I'm doing it at now, when I go show up on, tomorrow morning, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to put 385 pounds on my back, and I'm going to squat until I almost puke in a garbage can.
Yeah.
And people say, "Why would you do that?" And it's literally to remind myself that I can do it,
Mm.
because then no matter what else happens the rest of that day that comes at me, the things that are beyond my control, I can go back to that almost 400-pound bar on my back, and it gives me the confidence to know that this is nothing.
Hmm.
And that may sound stupid to a lot of people, but if you've ever intentionally pushed yourself that hard,
Yeah.
it gives you a perspective of what your mind is capable of that you can't get from anything other than physically pushing yourself that hard.
No, I totally agree with you, Jeremy, on that. I remember just running that hard, you know what I mean? Just to go on a 14-mile run or whatever, or even a hike or whatever, just pushing yourself just because why. You know, I'd work a 16-hour day when I was pushing a crew, and the joke was David's gonna go. I'd run 5 miles a day, right, every day, and the joke was, well, David's gonna go for a run, and he's not even running away from the cops. You know what I mean? It was kind of like a joke. They're like, why would you go run? And it's like, I want to be able to push myself. I want to know that I still got it, being in the
Yeah.
military and stuff like that. So I could agree with you on that. And it's something about it, even now, to where I'm an instructor, and I teach the next generation coming up how to be linemen, or future linemen. A lot of times I put on my tools and I'll climb just to say, hey, I still got it and I still can do this.
I can still do it. Yeah,
I can still do
sure.
it. You know what I mean? Because these guys are younger, they're younger, they're hungry and stuff like that. Dude, I'm 44 years old. I retired when I was 42, and then I came back in a different perspective into this trade, being an instructor now, which I absolutely
Mhm.
love. And I get to talk to a bunch of young men out there and influence them and meet a lot of different people. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, can I just say real quick that I
Yeah.
absolutely respect the hell out of what you're doing here, and the fact that you are an instructor for linemen, somebody that has this perspective as a leader. Because one of the biggest complaints that I've always had
Hmm.
about just blue collar work in general, but I mean, where I come from, the oil field, a lot of the leaders, man, they're just so hardened and bitter from the years of like
Torture.
just torture on their body, and yeah, exactly, just
Yeah.
torture. But it's like also you got all us young, hungry guys coming in,
Hmm.
and man, like if you're not careful, your hope can get crushed real fast.
Hmm.
So and I've always kind of said like we need more leaders that are giving these young kids coming into these trades hope that
Yes.
their road isn't just leading to like alcoholism and diabetes because
Right.
that's what.
Yeah, that's what's
So,
out there for a lot of them if they continue their habits. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Unfortunately, if they don't correct
yeah.
those habits. But I appreciate that. I really do, man. I really appreciate that. That's what we're going for. We're called out here to restore hope, to bring hope. You know. Um,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we talked about your dad, and your uncle, how he influenced you and stuff like that.
Mm.
Now, with that being said, what kind of advice do you have for like a young family dad to be more conscious about his health? Like, what would you say to that guy?
So, I mean, honestly, obviously that depends on like where's he at right
Yeah.
now with it. You know what I mean? But um there's five core things, or well, really three core things that I go through with all of my clients that no matter where they're at can
Hmm.
always help anybody, right? And
Yeah.
it's getting in at least 45 minutes of resistance training a day, and that can be weights, that can be resistance bands. You can get creative. I've had dudes like wrapping parts in t-shirts and curling them, and
Yeah.
using tie downs as like TRX bands to do body weight stuff. But you can get creative with that and have fun with that if you want, but at least 45 minutes of resistance training, and then a gallon of water every day, and tracking your food. Get a tracking app to track your food with. Learn how many calories a day you need to be consuming for whatever your goal is, whether that's weight loss, whether it's maintenance, just so you can have enough energy. I mean, maybe you're somebody who's happy with where you're at, but you have no energy and you feel like shit. You
Hmm.
don't necessarily need to, lose weight, but hardly anybody out there in the fitness industry talks about what does a guy like that need to do,
Yeah.
right? Because most of the time, guys like that aren't really out there talking about their problems. And even if they did, people would be like, who cares, right? Look
Hmm.
at you. So, but tracking your food, uh, drinking a gallon of water, and moving under resistance for 45 minutes a day are going to do wonders for anybody, no matter where they're
Hmm. I think
at.
a lot of times too, like the blue collar dads, being that our jobs are really pretty physical, right? So I
Yeah.
think they got that covered as far as the physical aspect of it. Drinking of water, yeah, I could see that. I drink a gallon a day, and I definitely see the difference. And I've always done that. But yeah, that's definitely one because I know when I was working a lot, especially in the cold, you don't drink a lot of water when it's friggin'
Yeah.
freezing cold and you're on a steel
Yep.
structure building power line. You know what I mean? You're not, that's the last thing you want to do is drink. And I remember
I've
cramping
I've
up, you
worked
know what
some
I mean?
winters in North Dakota, man. I know all about those winters.
Oh yeah, dude, you don't drink enough water. So yeah, heck yeah,
Yeah.
definitely water. And then the third you said was track your macros. Um,
Yeah.
how hard, I'm just thinking about it now because tracking macros, I tried that. Um, and you definitely get into a rhythm where you want to start tracking everything, right? But like, say
Hmm.
for instance, someone who is working from structure to structure, is it
Hmm.
better to like plan out the meal and like already have your macros planned out? I mean, because it'd be kind of
Well,
hard, especially like
so
with the
I'll just break it down because now we're getting into exactly what I do and
yeah.
kind of why I do it really. So what I did is I kind of reverse engineered the whole tracking your macros thing.
Okay.
Okay. Because it can kind of be overwhelming if you've never looked at it before, and especially when you throw in all
Yeah.
these obstacles like working structure to structure, being up in a bucket all day and not having food, stuff like that. It's like, how do you? I mean, it's a hard thing to learn if
Hmm.
you're sitting at a desk all day.
Yeah.
It's an even harder thing to learn when you're 90 feet in the air. So what I do is I have a consultation call with them, obviously, where
Yeah.
uh, I get a feel for like what is this guy's particular situation and struggle, right?
Hmm.
And then once we have all that together, then I write them a meal plan
Okay.
that works around that. And I sit down and I do all that brain work of figuring out how to overcome those obstacles, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I deliver them that plan and I say, okay, here's your game plan. We're going to use this plan like training wheels. Okay? So this is what perfect looks like. Now I want you to do the best you possibly can to execute on this for the next 2 weeks.
Hmm.
If there's anything that you think you're not going to be able to execute on or you're really consistently struggling with out of the gate, I'm here for you to communicate with me. I have my own app that all my clients communicate with me through.
Hmm.
Where they track their food and their workouts right in there, so I have access to like seeing all of that every day.
Yeah.
And that way, through those 2 weeks, we get even a more clear picture of like, okay, where are you screwing up? What's the hang up for you still? And then we build from there, right? And then I
Hmm.
start to teach them what are the best backup plans to have in place. What's the best go-to thing to grab in your area based off of what your options normally are. What are some things you can keep in your truck that are going to always be good and there for you? What are the right supplements that you can take to fill in the gaps that
Hmm.
you can't get with real food? How do you pick a good protein powder versus a bad protein powder? Or maybe it's not even good or bad. It's like, but there are meal replacement protein powders and there's workout recovery protein powders.
Yeah.
Why do those exist and when's the best time to use both of those things in your circumstance? So there's a lot of moving
Variables.
parts to all of that. And that's why I have a job, right?
Yeah. No, that's why you do it.
Yeah. With, to answer your question, where to start with that, I hate to just totally plug my stuff, but you get a hold of me
Yeah.
or try to find somebody else like me that can help you because I'll take it from someone who put this together the hard way.
Yeah.
It took me 3 years to
Hmm.
accomplish what realistically should have been like a 4-month transformation.
Hmm. And the cool thing too, Jeremy, is like you're not like, everybody has their own program, everybody does their stuff, right? And they have results. You look at them, you got, I don't want to really put out so many names out there, but there's guys out there that are physically fit, they're
Oh yeah,
looking good, they got the Lamborghinis, they got this and that, neck blasted, whatever, right? And that looks cool, right?
yeah,
To some people. Now, with that being said, has that person ever worked a blue collar job? Does he know how it's like to be a lineman? Does he know what it's like to work 80, 90 hours a week? No. And that's where
yeah,
you come in. And that's awesome, dude, because you can help those guys out there that, you know, are working those
yeah.
hours and they want to make those
I
tests.
mean, and that's what this was born out of, man. So,
Yeah.
I told you my story about how I found the gym when I was in high school because of being bullied and wanting to put an end to that. That
Hmm.
kind of I got bit by that bug, and then I spent the next, you know, however many years kind of daydreaming about becoming a bodybuilder
Hmm.
one day. Just because I thought like, oh well, if I look like this, then nobody's ever gonna want to mess with me, right?
Yeah.
Um, but then your why transforms as you get older and stuff. But I did end up doing some bodybuilding, competing on stage, and I fell in love with it. That's kind of what made me want to become a personal trainer. But I was a DNF student all the way through school, man. I flunked every test I ever took, damn near, except for the ones I cheated on. And so then trying to take the personal trainer test when I was young, I failed it. Then I said, screw this, off to the oil field we go, basically. And went and did that, and then circled back around and was able to pass. But the reason I circled back around and came to this was because I had bodybuilding coaches when I was training for bodybuilding. And I was working 40 hours a week at my grandparents' motorcycle shop. My house was 6 minutes from there. The gym was 10 minutes from there. It wasn't easy. It was a shit ton of hard work, but were not as many obstacles as living in a hotel room or a man camp or working 87 and a half hours a week and, never knowing what county I was going to wake up in tomorrow. So, after 2 years in the oil field, I gained all my weight back. I did not look like a bodybuilder anymore. I was overweight. I was miserable. I hated what I looked like in the mirror. I hated how I felt. I remember I went to put on my Ariat fire resistant jeans, which I don't know if you guys have to wear FR stuff, but we did. And so you know how expensive that stuff is. And I had a pair that I bought and that I, was like excited to wear. And I hadn't worn them because I bought them like at the beginning of my 2 weeks off. And over the 2 weeks off, I just ate like a bunch of shit and then went back to work, and those pants already didn't fit. And I was like, oh man. And that was kind of like one of those wake up calls. So I went and looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, wow, this is actually really, really out of hand. I need to do something about it. So I called my old bodybuilding coach. I talked to some other people and they all kind of told me the same thing. It's impossible. It is impossible for you to do that with the lifestyle that you have. And I was like, well, it can't be impossible because I can't quit this job and I can't live looking like this. So I'm going to go figure it out. And I did find a few coaches that said they could do it and then took my money and disappeared. So that frustrated me. And, and when I say they took my money and disappeared, they took my money, tried as hard as they could to help me. And then when they couldn't, just stopped answering the phone.
They ghosted you.
So I was like, all right, well, here we go. So then, like I said, I just struggled through it on my own until slowly but surely I finally got there. And, once that happened, I had, 3 or 4 buddies on the rig with me that all were asking me questions like, man, how did you do this? I can't believe you accomplished this out here. This is crazy. Will you teach me? So I started showing some of those guys the ropes, how to do it. And they started getting good results. And one of them said to me one day, man, I've tried literally everything. He said, I've tried so many things. I've worked with other guys out here that claim that they could help me do this. And he's like, no one could. He's like, but you did. And that's when I kind of was like, I need to do something with this outside of just this crew of people right here. So it's kind of how I got here, was because I went through it and realized there was nobody. And once I figured out how to do it for me, I was like, okay, well, there needs to be somebody to show these people how to do it. Because to be quite honest with you, the reason why I told you why I have so much respect for what you do is because I am really, really, really sick and tired of watching the hardest working men in this country, their lives just completely fall apart.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm so tired of it. Because I remember being that young, hungry kid standing in my first oil field safety meeting, couldn't believe that I landed a 6-figure a year job as someone who almost dropped out of high school. Couldn't believe I was going to make more money than all my siblings who all went to college. And I was going to do all this great stuff. And I'm excited and I'm hungry and I want to climb the ladder and I want to do all these things. And not 3 months in, I'm so pessimistic I can't even hardly stand it, because all I'm hearing about from everyone around me is how my girlfriend's going to cheat on me. I talked about having dreams of owning a gym one day, and they all said, haha, good luck with that. This place is a black hole. You ain't ever going to leave. And it was just that same narrative all throughout. And it used to make me mad. And now it just breaks my heart. Because I'm like, man, none of you guys were always like this.
No.
And I think that goes back to being a good dad more than anything else, because, me and my wife, we laugh hysterically almost every day, at least once a day with our kids, because we have no problem just goofing off and acting just like them. We're not too miserable to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not so drained from getting beat, yelled at all day, or just being told this miserableness, and my body doesn't hurt and ache. And it's because I learned how and figured out how to take care of myself.
Yes.
And I know that I thought I wasn't a dad when I worked in the oil field, but I did get my body back before I left the oil field. And I could tell you just simple things like being able to tie your shoes without having to take a big gasp of air before you bend over to do it.
Yeah.
Are things that, you take for granted. And you just think because you're working so hard physically every day that stuff's not going to catch up with you because you're young. And then alcohol and preservatives and chemicals and all this crap that's in our food that they don't tell us is in our food literally wreaks so much havoc on your metabolism. You could work your ass in the dirt all day long and still get fat. It is possible. It happened to me. So
energy drinks. I mean, my gosh, dude, the sugars in
100%.
that.
Absolutely, man. I mean, sugar is the cause of 80% of disease on this planet.
Yep.
I mean, it's crazy because it's in everything. I mean, it's just totally normal. I mean, it's what we do with our kids on Friday night. Like, we take them to go get sugar.
Yeah.
So
no. And it's crazy, dude, because I see, like, I have a friend of mine, guy's on a diet, he wants to be better for his kids. He wants to be better so he could feel better and everything, right? Because it does. The way we feel about ourselves affects everything. It affects our relationships. It affects our work. It affects our sleep. It affects everything, right? It's
100%.
Crazy.
I always have this analogy that I use in a lot of my content and with my clients. Our bodies are the piece of equipment that we get to operate through life with. And if you are, I work with a lot of pipeline operators, and those guys sitting in excavators, tractors all day long, and they operate that machine to do a job. But as the operator of that machine, the daily routine maintenance is a part of their responsibility as the operator. And if you start skipping on that maintenance, that machine is not going to perform as as effectively as you need it to. And one of the ironic things with blue collar guys not taking care of themselves, a lot of times they say they don't have time because of their job. Well, dude, you're out of time because you're not doing this routine maintenance, and your machine is about to blow up. Or it's going to blow up a lot sooner because you're not taking care of it. You don't have time. You think you don't have time now. You're burning up what little time you have, period, by neglecting this stuff.
Yeah. And
everybody always says it's harder to lose weight as you get older.
It is.
It's harder. It's harder to correct. It's harder to correct any problem that you've neglected for a long period of time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I mean, just don't sweep your floor for a week, and it's harder to sweep your floor.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, it's kind of common sense, but yeah, our bodies affect everything we do, and the warning lights from our bodies too are a lot different than in a machine, right? Because you think that signs of not taking care of your body are going to show up more first in like physical ailments and physical pain and stuff, but no, that lack of patience that you have with your kids is because of the anxiety you feel because you know that you're not taking care of yourself.
Wow.
Because every single time you get up in the morning and you go brush your teeth and you look in the mirror and you have to look yourself in your face and you see that and you go, wow, I don't like this. And that's how you start every single day of your life. I mean, how are you going to be positive?
Yeah. How are you?
You can try, you can fake it, but you're never going to be genuinely positive if you wake up and you go look in the mirror and you can't be proud of the person looking back at you and mean it. And regardless of all the other accomplishments you may have accomplished in your life up until this point, if you're 45, 50 pounds overweight, you're not going to mean it.
Yeah.
Because we all know that that's not okay.
Yeah.
in the back of our minds. And I'm saying this as someone who let it get that bad at one point in time, at multiple points throughout my life. I've gained and lost my weight more than once.
Mhm.
I know it's not easy. That's why I do what I do. But, it's just knowing that life is so much better on this end of it
Mhm.
is what makes it all worth it at the end of the day.
And what do you really have to lose? You know what I mean? A better life, a longer life, hopefully, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the crazy part is it really, I can't even really remember
Mhm.
the the way I felt of like, well, because for me, it
Mhm.
got so bad that I literally was like, I will do whatever it takes to not feel like this.
Mhm.
And I mean, and it just got that bad for me mentally because I struggled with my weight growing up. It was kind of the source, like you said. What you're saying? Your mess is your message,
Yeah.
and I always say your pain is your purpose.
Mhm.
I have a friend who's the same age as me. I'm only 31, and I have a friend who's the same age as me, and he's pretty ridiculously financially successful for our age.
Mhm.
And he's made all his money in oil and gas, started his own businesses and things. He's a really, really hard worker, super smart financially. And that's the guy I go to when I need to talk, when I need advice in that area. And he comes to me when he needs advice in the fitness area, right? And he's overweight and doesn't take the greatest care of himself, but he's a good guy, good dad, and
Mhm.
super knowledgeable in the financial area. And we talked about it one time. He said, it's super interesting because I was super poor growing up. I was
Mhm.
dirt floor poor growing up because it was literally the root of my pain growing up was that
Mhm.
like my parents were so poor we didn't know when we were going to eat next and stuff, right?
Mhm.
Well, I don't know what that's like. My parents actually did pretty well my whole life. We were financially comfortable, but the source of my pain was just being that short little fat kid that nobody respected, that
Mhm.
everybody made fun of and beat up, and like, so now that's why I do this, because
Mhm.
that was my solution to that pain. So
Yeah. No, and it's true because a lot of times, a lot of men, just to become a better father, better husband, better in shape, better whatever, right? You have to come to a point where you say that's enough. Enough is enough, right?
yeah,
Unfortunately, for
absolutely.
extreme change to happen, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, Jeremy. We're running out of time now, but one
Yeah.
thing I wanted to ask you before I get off here is I had a friend who phoned in and asked me, he has all this stuff going on, right? He's working out, he's dieting, he's doing all this stuff, right? His problem is staying disciplined. How can someone stay disciplined, right? Like during the week or whatever. Like, what do you suggest? Like, what is something that you tell your clients or whatever?
So I mean, again, I would have to hear more of like what is his exact situation, where
Mm.
what is the cause of, because there's always a cause, right? There's
Yeah.
always something that triggers us to break that discipline. Like for me, it's when somebody leaves the Oreos out on the counter.
Well, it's
But
kind of like that. Like
yeah,
the apprentices bring donuts or
yeah,
whatever. You know what I mean? You see these good donuts, you've been good all week, and all of a sudden, oh, I might take one of those. You know what I mean, or
yeah.
whatever. You know?
So the thing that I have done that's allowed me, like, like I told you before, I've gained my weight and then lost it and then gained it and lost it. But now I've managed to say, I've managed to keep a six pack for the last like 2 years straight.
Hmm.
And while gaining muscle actually. But what's allowed me to do that is I pick times throughout the year. And the supplement company that I'm affiliated with
Hmm.
um actually runs challenges. So I've just coincided them with these challenges because it makes it super easy. But there's 4 challenges throughout the year. They're 8 weeks long. So when that
Hmm.
8 week challenge, there's one of them going on right now. So when that 8 week challenge rolls around, I'll just buckle in for those 8 weeks, right?
Hmm.
And those 8 weeks are like no bullshit, non-negotiable. You're not cheating. You're staying disciplined for these 8 weeks. Now, the beauty in that is the donuts and the Oreos and the pizza and all that stuff, they're still going to be there when 8 weeks is up, right?
Yeah.
But then you don't want when the 8 weeks is over to just go back full blown like you're eating that stuff every day again, because that's what everybody's super afraid of, right? So it's like we talk about how do we find this balance, and
Hmm.
what has worked well for me and what I've had a lot of success with teaching my clients to do is let's let's go through let's go through 8 weeks. and let's be as hard as we can for 8 weeks. And a lot of the guys that come to me have no problem doing that, because a lot of these guys are in that position that we were just talking about. It was like, enough is enough. I've got to fix this, and I know that this is the first step. So, once the 8 weeks is up, then we decide on like either a weekly cheat meal, where it's like once a week you plan a date night with your wife, or a family movie night with your kids, or whatever, and you get to have that one cheat meal, right? Some guys that like to snack. I'm a guy that likes to snack. So like for me, it'll be like Friday evening, come 5 p.m., all bets are off on what goes in my mouth until I go to bed. But just that night, that one night a week, right? And then Saturday morning, I'm back up, I'm on it, and I'm good, right? And that doesn't mean that I'm not sneaking my kids snacks off the counter, sliced pepperoni when I make a sandwich for my son or whatever. And I'm not saying I should be doing that stuff. I'm saying I'm human, and that stuff happens. But when I have those periods of time where it's not where I'm saying, hey, no matter what, you're not slipping up here, then that's what allows me to keep my foot on the pedal throughout, right? And I may still slip up, or somebody may still slip up even during that 8-week period, right? But the important thing to tell yourself in that is, okay, I messed up. There's nothing I can do about that, that meal I just ate. So I need to get right back on track with the next meal, though, and I need to just continue rolling. And there's nothing I can do about that meal that I just screwed up. And if you can frame it like that, you'll space further and further gaps between the times that you mess up, right? Because instead of I used to beat myself up so bad. It's like, oh, you're an idiot. Why'd you do that? You shouldn't have ate that, right? Because for a lot of us, man, we grow up just never being told any of this stuff. There's literally, the snack cabinet was free range, and we just went in there and we grabbed a bag of chips and went to the couch and whatever, maybe it wasn't like every day, right? Like my parents put some limitations on me, but there was no, talk of like, what's good for you, what's bad for you. Don't do this, don't do that. Like, it was just kind of like, here's the food, and don't be an asshole about how much of it you eat. But so like that's kind of all we know. So if you are in your kitchen and your wife just went to the grocery store and you've got all the snacks out on the counter, and the bag of peanut butter M&Ms is open. If you are new to dieting and to fitness and to eating healthy, and you've been eating handfuls of peanut butter M&Ms every time you pass the jar for your whole life, you are going to do that subconsciously quite a few times before you totally catch yourself, before you actually swallow those M&Ms. And that's not a reason to beat yourself up. I mean, it's literally, you don't even notice it, right? Like I vividly remember chewing on an Oreo and being like, shit, I'm not supposed to do this right now. But like, it's such a unconscious habit that as humans, we just don't even pay attention to it until we start to pay attention to it.
Exactly. And it's cool to see, because even, those rules, that you live by, right? Putting that goal and stuff like that, and then being able to tell yourself, hey man, you messed up, there's nothing I can do about it. Dude, those are universal laws that can be transparent through anything. It could be even
100%
used with when you're a dad and you yell at your kids, and you can be like, okay, this is what happened, let's get back on the horse. And
and that goes right back to what I said about my dad at the beginning of the podcast. I mean, and that's why that's why I really preach fitness as a solution to so many other problems. You have so many guys. I work with a lot of guys that are going through divorces. And these guys come to me right after getting served their divorce papers, right? And there's a 50-50 split of the guys that are coming because they're getting divorced and they're going to be back on the market, right? And the other 50%, it's probably actually more like 80-20, 80% of the guys that are going to go back on the market. Then you got 20% of these guys that realize they're the freaking problem. And they're like, I know this is where I need to start. And I always ask them, why do you think this is where you need to start? Like we're just talking about going into a building and picking some things up and putting them back down.
Right.
So what ties that into why you're getting divorced right now? And then we start talking about the self-awareness, the mental ability to be in control of yourself.
Yes.
That is formed better through dieting than anything else on this planet. Because think about it. Food is a drug. I mean, all the foods that we're not supposed to be eating, it's not a secret anymore. There's addictive chemicals in these foods that have been put in there to get us addicted to them.
Yep.
Okay. So imagine being a drug addict. You're addicted to, cocaine, and you got a problem with how much cocaine you do. But instead of being able to just quit doing cocaine and quit being around cocaine, you still need a certain amount of it to live.
Yeah.
And you can only have a certain type. And by the way, everybody around you is going to continue to do whatever kind of cocaine and however much of it they want.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like being on a diet. And when you can break through that, when you can be the dude standing in the doghouse on your rig or whatever that place is for you on the line, when you're the dude standing there and everybody else is eating pizza and you're eating your turkey and rice, your ground turkey and rice, or your chicken breast and potatoes or whatever, like you string enough of those days together, you will start to develop so much pride in yourself. It's not even funny. And you'll start to see excuses that you're making in other areas of your life that you're like, I cannot believe that I validated that excuse for myself for so long. And there's no faster way to reveal those things about yourself than to dedicate yourself to a meal plan or any type of nutrition regimen. And then if you pair that with a hard resistance training program, those two things in and of themselves, they do so much mentally. I mean, I tell people all the time that the way I look is just a side effect of my antidepressant, which is just going to the gym.
Just go to the gym, right? Well, Jeremy, brother, right on. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing so much valuable information, brother. I appreciate it, man. The big takeaway from this is that self-awareness and discipline, brother. And that solves a lot of our issues, But before we get off, can you please share how people can reach out to you and get a hold of you if they want to start your program or anything like that, which I highly recommend? Please do so.
Thank you. Yeah, so the easiest two ways are going to be to go to bluecollartransformations.com. If you're interested in the one-on-one coaching program, there's a link right on the home page there that says apply for coaching. You'll fill out that application. You'll receive a text message from us to schedule the consultation call with me. That'll be a free 1-hour consultation call where we just talk about what your goals are, where you're at right now, and why you're struggling to reach them. So I can kind of assess, first of all, can I help you? And second of all, how can I help you? So if that's something you're interested in, that's how you do that. Or you can just reach out to me on Instagram, just DM me on Instagram. Let me know you're interested in the program. And those are two fast ways to get a hold of me for that. And then also on the website, we have, apparel available. We're starting that Transform Your Habits brand that I talked about. We're starting an apparel company called Blue Collar Gym, which is kind of like, blue collar guys that are traveling for work. We don't have that like home-based gym that guys get to go to where they build camaraderie with people. And we kind of want to build a community around this blue collar gym thing online. We just started it. So we're going to build like a online community of blue collar guys that are into fitness so they can come together. So anyway, that's all right there on bluecollartransformations.com. My Instagram is JeremyGBCT. So that's pretty simple to remember. And then I'm also on Facebook just under Jeremy Gardner. And just follow my wife too. She's the American Bombshell on Instagram.
Right on, brother. Well, once again, thank you for coming on here and sharing this valuable information, brother. I look forward to talking to you some more. And thank you for coming on, bro. I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the opportunity. This was fun.
Absolutely.